My smart speaker turned on by itself and played his voice, whispering to my wife words that shattered our home in 30 seconds. I was just washing dishes when I heard it. That tone in her voice, soft, teasing, the same one she used to use with me. But now she was laughing at someone else's words. I froze. The speaker's blue ring glowed like an eye mocking me. That thing we'd bought together suddenly felt like a witness to something I wasn't supposed to hear. By the way, if you like true stories that hit deep and twist when you least expect it, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. What happened after this moment changed everything for me. I walked over and asked, "Alexa, what did you just play?" The calm robotic voice replied, "Playing message from Daniel received yesterday at 11:42 p.m. Daniel. I didn't know any Daniel, but she did. The helpful coworker she'd mentioned a few months ago. My chest went tight. Still, I said nothing. I just stood there, pretending nothing happened, while my mind started connecting every red flag I'd ignored. Late nights, new passwords, sudden privacy. That night, she fell asleep beside me, like nothing was wrong. I opened the smart home app on my phone. Every voice command, every message, neatly stored in logs. And there it was. Message from Daniel. The time, the date, proof burned into data. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Anger would only ruin the plan I was starting to build in my head. I work in IT. I know systems remember more than people think. So I connected the speaker to my laptop through a hidden script that would record every activation and save it in a private cloud. If she was still talking to him, I'd have it all, in her own voice. 2 nights later, she said she was tired and went to bed early. The logs showed her voice an hour later in the living room, followed by a man's, calm, confident. Her laugh followed. I didn't need to hear the rest, but I did. Every second. It was like watching your life burn in slow motion, except I wasn't running from the fire. I was holding the match. From that night, I wasn't just a husband. I was an observer, a strategist. She wanted to lie inside a smart home? Fine. I'd let the house tell the truth for me. This wasn't rage. It was calculation, cold, precise, and already in motion. You'd be surprised how easy it is to hide a lie when the other person wants to believe you. For the next week, I played the role of the perfect husband. Calm, caring, predictable. Every smile she gave me felt rehearsed, but I matched it. I wasn't looking for a fight. I was collecting data. At night, when she scrolled through her phone facing away from me, I'd glance at the smart home dashboard on mine. The system logged every time she activated the speaker, even when I wasn't home. I noticed a pattern. Every few days around midnight, the speaker woke up without any music request. Just a few seconds of silence, then a faint trace of voices.
I started naming the files. Night 1. Night 2. Daniel call. Cold. Factual. No emotion. The more evidence I gathered, the number I became. What used to be love was now research. By the 3rd night, I upgraded my setup. I coded a small script that synced the audio logs to a hidden folder in my cloud storage. It even sent me silent notifications whenever she used a specific keyword: play, message, or call. And then one night, I got the notification while I was at work. Activation detected living room speaker. Time, 10:38 p.m. She told me she was too tired to stay up late. My shift wasn't over, but I opened the live feed from the security cam I had installed months ago for safety. No visuals, just sound. The room was dark, but I could hear faint laughter. Her voice, then his. I didn't record it directly. I didn't need to. The logs already stored the trigger and timestamp. My stomach tightened as I realized how casually they used the home I built, the one I paid for, maintained, trusted. The next morning, she was cheerful. Pancakes on the table, coffee already brewed. "Thought I'd surprise you," she said, kissing me on the cheek. Her lips felt warm. Mine went cold. I looked at her, pretending to be grateful, and said, "You're full of surprises lately." She laughed. That same laugh I'd heard through the speaker. My chest burned, but I didn't flinch. She didn't deserve my anger. She deserved to be unmasked. That day, I went further. I checked her phone's Bluetooth history. The speaker's pairing list had 2 devices, mine and another labeled D_13. Daniel, of course. The betrayal didn't just hurt, it fascinated me. How 2 people could be so careless, so confident, that they left fingerprints in every digital corner of our home. So I decided to make technology my witness. I built an automation. Whenever her phone connected to the Wi-Fi after 10 p.m., the speaker would automatically start recording ambient sound. No alerts, no visible sign. By the weekend, I had hours of recordings, pieces of conversations, soft laughter, even arguments between them. I didn't need to play detective anymore. I had enough. But I didn't stop, because now it wasn't just about catching her. It was about building something unforgettable. Something that would expose the truth without me saying a single word. And as I listened to those recordings, alone in my office, I realized I wasn't just documenting her betrayal. I was scripting her downfall. I'll never forget the first time I actually heard them. Not just a glitch, not a hint. Their voices, clear as day, echoing through my own living room when I wasn't there. I sat in my car outside the house, listening through my laptop, the dashboard light flickering across my hands. Her laugh filled the speakers, soft, familiar, and poisoned now. That sound hit me harder than any argument ever could. I didn't slam anything, didn't curse. I just sat there, letting every second burn itself into my memory. If pain had a frequency, that was it.
When I walked into the house later, she greeted me like nothing had happened. "Hey, you're home early," she said, smiling, her voice honey-sweet. I looked around the room, the same one that had betrayed me hours earlier. The irony almost made me laugh. I played it cool. I asked her about her day, helped her make dinner, even joked a little. But while she talked, I studied her face. Every blink, every pause, the tiny tremor in her voice when she said, "I love you." It wasn't guilt, it was fear. Somewhere deep down, she knew I was different. The next day, I went through the recordings carefully. No explicit words, nothing too clear, but enough. The way she said his name, the little sighs between sentences, the rhythm of their conversation. It wasn't what was said, it was how. People who are hiding something always sound like they're whispering to keep their world from falling apart. That night, I transferred the clips to a hidden drive. I labeled them methodically. Proof 1, Proof 2, living room conversation. I even attached dates and context notes. Not because I wanted revenge, not yet, but because part of me still needed to know if I was crazy. Then I noticed something strange in the logs. The voice commands weren't random. They followed a pattern. 3 short activations, then silence, then her saying, "Play our song." Our song. I had shown her that song years ago. The one we danced to when we moved in together. I didn't need to listen to know what came next. She had taken something sacred and repurposed it for someone else. I sat in the dark, my laptop screen glowing cold blue. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was invasion. My home had become a stage for their secret. Every wall, every device, every smart light remembered it. And I was the one holding the controls. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I planned. I mapped out every possible reaction. Hers, his, even her parents'. If I ever revealed this, it wouldn't be through anger. it would be through precision. By morning, I had decided I wouldn't confront her directly. Not yet. Instead, I'd gather everything until there was no doubt left, no excuse she could make, no, "you misunderstood." I was going to let the truth play itself, literally. And as I left for work that day, I glanced at the speaker in the corner of the room. Its light blinked once, like it understood me, like it was waiting for my command. Soon, I thought. Soon, everyone will hear what you heard. The thing about revenge is that it only works when the other person feels safe. That's what I kept telling myself as I made breakfast the next morning, acting like the man she still thought I was. I poured her coffee, smiled, even kissed her forehead. She looked relaxed, comfortable, perfect. That was exactly what I needed. I'd already seen everything I needed to see, heard enough to know it wasn't a misunderstanding. But instead of confronting her, I started building something smarter. A game she didn't even know she was playing. That week, I began leaving subtle hints that I was happier. I started working out again, cooked dinners, brought her flowers. The irony made me laugh inside. I was giving her more attention than ever while quietly setting up the perfect trap. I wanted her to relax, to think I'd stopped noticing things. And it worked. Within days, her guard dropped. She was humming in the kitchen again, posting photos of date nights we never actually went on. Meanwhile, I was creating the illusion of stability, the calm before her storm. Behind the scenes, I configured the smart home system to record not just her commands, but the entire environment when triggered by specific phrases. If she said certain words, his name, a song title, or "call me later," the system would quietly store a longer audio file. By Thursday, I had everything running automatically. She had no idea her own habits were feeding my database. Every message, every fake "good night," stored and timestamped. But here's the part that surprised even me. I started to feel calm, like I'd taken control back without ever raising my voice. For the first time in months, I slept well. One evening, I came home and found her on the couch smiling at her phone. When she noticed me, she flipped it over fast, too fast. "Just work stuff," she said. I nodded and sat beside her, pretending to be interested in whatever show was on. Inside, I already knew what was on that screen. After she went to bed, I checked the logs. There it was. Message played, Daniel, 9:41 p.m. The recording caught a brief part of their chat, enough to confirm they'd planned another late work night the next day. Perfect. That night, I stayed up making what I called the stage. I connected the smart speaker to a private playlist on my laptop, one that looked harmless but contained a hidden track list of all the recordings, each trimmed and renamed to sound like casual voice notes. I tested it once just to hear how smooth it transitioned from music to reminders. It worked flawlessly. The plan was simple: wait until the right moment and then let the house speak for itself. The next morning, she told me her parents wanted to come over for dinner that weekend. That's when I knew fate was on my side. A family gathering, an audience she couldn't escape. I smiled and said, "That sounds great. Let's make it special." And I meant it, because for the first time, I wasn't angry anymore. I was patient, focused, ready. She thought she was playing me, but I was the one setting every line of dialogue, every cue, every light in that house. Soon, she'd realized that the home she thought was her secret was actually my confession booth. And when the truth came out, it wouldn't be me who told it. It would be our house. If revenge was an art, this was my masterpiece. Every detail mattered. Every move had to look casual, effortless, just another weekend with family. While she spent Friday afternoon texting recipes to her mom, I was fine-tuning the playlist that would end our marriage without a single argument.
I renamed each recording to sound like harmless reminders. Dinner timer, family photo cue, holiday playlist. When played, they blended perfectly with background songs and voice commands. To anyone listening, it would sound like the speaker simply doing its job, until the voices started. "If you're still here, Don't forget to subscribe. What happens next is where technology meets justice. Saturday morning, she was cheerful. She thought she was in control. She wore that same confident smile she used when she lied. "My parents can't wait to see you," she said, leaning against the counter. I nodded, sipping my coffee, hiding the tiny flash drive in my pocket that contained the final version of my playlist. The plan was simple. When dinner began, I'd sync my phone to the house system and start playing the list. The first few tracks were innocent, soft jazz, casual chatter. Then, at the right timestamp, the smart speaker would switch to one of her reminders, a familiar voice, his voice. To make sure nothing could go wrong, I rehearsed the setup while she ran errands. I tested the sound system, the timing, the volume. Every test felt like loading another bullet. Quiet, precise, irreversible. By the time she came back, everything was ready. The dining table was perfectly arranged, candles waiting to be lit. Her parents would love the atmosphere. They'd also hear the truth. That evening, while she cooked, I stood behind her, pretending to scroll through my phone. "You've outdone yourself," I said softly. She smiled, proud. "I just want tonight to be perfect." "Oh, it will be," I whispered. She didn't catch the tone. Later, her parents arrived, cheerful, warm, completely unaware. They hugged me, complimented the house, asked about work. I smiled, calm, polite. If guilt had a scent, she wore it like perfume. Every time her mom mentioned how lucky we were, I saw the flicker in her eyes. She knew something was off, but not what. Not yet. When dinner began, the house lights dimmed automatically. "Romantic touch," her dad laughed. She winked at me, thinking I'd done it for her. I had, just not for the reason she thought. As we sat down, I quietly opened the smart home app under the table. My thumb hovered over the playlist icon. One tap, and the performance would begin. But I waited. Timing was everything. The longer she felt safe, the harder the fall would hit. We ate, we laughed, we talked about vacations and work promotions. She looked radiant, glowing under the lights, confident in her illusion. And then, when her mother stood to make a toast, I tapped play. Music filled the room, soft, harmless. The same jazz track we always used for family dinners. She smiled, relaxed, and reached for her glass. None of them knew what was coming next. I watched her face carefully. Calm, composed. Soon that would change, because the house was listening, and the truth was cued to play. The day before everything was set to unfold, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying every step of the plan, every sound cue, every possible reaction. I wasn't nervous about getting caught. I was nervous about staying calm when the moment came. By sunrise, I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the smart speaker. That tiny black cylinder had become both my weapon and my witness. It looked harmless, silent, obedient, but inside it held every truth she tried to hide. When she came downstairs, she smiled, still half asleep. "You're up early," she murmured. "Just thinking. Tomorrow's dinner, you know." She kissed me on the cheek and poured her coffee, completely unaware that the same speaker she was about to ask for the weather had once captured her secrets. After she left for work, I ran one final test. I replayed the entire sequence, the jazz intro, the soft transitions, the disguised reminders.
Everything flowed seamlessly. The recordings were trimmed to just the right length, enough to expose, but not enough to sound edited. It felt surgical, precise. By noon, I sat in my car outside her office, watching from a distance. It wasn't jealousy, it was confirmation. She walked out for lunch, phone in hand, smiling at a message that wasn't from me. I didn't need to see the name to know who it was. She looked comfortable. Too comfortable. That moment killed any last bit of doubt I had. She wasn't sorry, she wasn't torn, she was living two lives, and tomorrow, both of them would collide. Back home, I cleaned the house, double-checked every setting. I even baked her favorite dessert, not because I wanted to please her, but because normalcy was part of the show. If everything looked perfect, no one would suspect a thing. Around evening, she called me. "Hey, can you pick up a bottle of wine for tomorrow? Dad loves the Merlot." "Sure," I said, smiling into the phone. "Thanks, babe. You're the best." The words used to mean something. Now they just sounded like background noise. That night, I sat in the dark living room with the lights off, the soft glow of the speaker across the room. It blinked once, a small blue ring. It almost felt alive, like it knew what was coming. For a moment, I felt something strange, not anger, not satisfaction, just sadness. This wasn't how I wanted to win, but this wasn't about victory anymore. It was about balance, justice. I took a deep breath and whispered, "Play preview." The system obeyed. Jazz filled the air, smooth and warm, followed by her voice, laughing, soft, then his, low and careless. It was perfect. The timing, the tone, the atmosphere. I closed my eyes and let it play. When it ended, the silence was deafening, the kind of silence that holds both power and pain. I looked around our home, the walls, the photos, the life we'd built. Everything looked the same, but it wasn't. It would never be. Again. Tomorrow, the truth would play itself. And this time, I wouldn't stop it.
The day of the dinner felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, calm on the outside, chaos underneath. The house looked perfect. The table was set, candles ready, soft jazz playing through the same speaker that held her truth. Even the air felt charged, like the walls themselves were waiting. She was glowing that evening, confident, proud. She looked amazing, she told me as she adjusted my tie. "So do you," I said, smiling, my voice steady, my hands calm. Inside, every heartbeat counted down to 0. Her parents arrived first, cheerful and unaware. They hugged us both, complimenting the food, the house, everything. Her father handed me a bottle of wine. "For the best son-in-law," he said. I thanked him, forcing a grin that felt heavy. Then came her sister, chatty and loud as always. The room filled with laughter, warmth, small talk. To anyone else, it looked like the perfect family night. To me, it was the stage I'd built. Dinner started light, stories, jokes, passing dishes around. Every time she laughed, I felt that mix of nostalgia and nausea. She was good at pretending. Maybe she thought I was too. Halfway through the meal, her mom raised her glass. "To love and to family," she said sweetly. Glasses clinked, smiles all around. I joined in, knowing what came next would tear that smile off her face. When dessert arrived, I stood and said, "Hey, before we eat, I thought I'd play something." "Oh?" she asked, surprised but amused. "What kind of surprise?" "You'll see." I pulled out my phone, tapped the familiar icon. The music started, soft, elegant, familiar. Everyone relaxed. Her dad nodded along to the rhythm. Her mom complimented my taste. She reached across the table, gently touching my hand.
You're full of surprises lately.
I looked at her and smiled. You have no idea. The room glowed under warm lights. Laughter filled the air. Everything looked so normal, painfully normal. Then, as the first track ended, the next began. The speaker's tone shifted slightly, still smooth, still harmless, and then a voice. His voice. Clear, intimate, impossible to mistake. At first, no one reacted. It sounded like a casual reminder, just background noise. But then came her laugh. The same laugh I'd heard 100 times in secret recordings. Light, familiar, and completely damning. Her fork froze mid-air. Her mother blinked, confused. "Sweetheart, was that?" She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted toward me. I just sat there, calm, watching the realization bloom across her face. The speaker continued, unaware of the tension it unleashed. "You're perfect," the man's voice said. Then silence. The room stood still. No one breathed. Her father's expression changed. Disbelief first, then something heavier. I leaned back in my chair and said quietly, "Guess the house keeps better memories than we do." Her face drained of color. You did this?" she whispered.
I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The evidence was already echoing through the walls. Her sister looked down, awkward, uncomfortable. Her mom whispered her name, but she just sat there, frozen, every excuse dying on her tongue. I pressed pause. The silence afterward was louder than the recording itself. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. Then I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Dinner's over." The silence after I pressed pause felt heavier than any scream. No one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft hiss of the candle. Her father's hand was still frozen around his glass, eyes locked on his daughter. Her mother's lips trembled, like she wanted to speak but didn't know what to say. My wife, no, the woman sitting across from me, looked small. She wasn't angry or crying. She was just pale, stunned, trying to understand how everything had slipped out of her control. She finally whispered, You recorded me?" I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm and even. "No, you recorded yourself. The house did exactly what you told it to." Her sister looked down, awkward, uncomfortable. Her mom whispered her name, but she just sat there, frozen, every excuse dying on her tongue. I pressed pause. The silence afterward was louder than the recording itself. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. Then I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Dinner's over." Her mother looked at her sharply. "Is that true?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her father turned toward me, his face unreadable. "Son," he said quietly, "what are we hearing?" The truth. Straight from her favorite gadget. My wife? No. The woman sitting across from me, pushed back from the table, her chair scraping the floor. She said, "This isn't fair. This is manipulation." I stood slowly, keeping my voice level. "You're right. It's unfair. But not in the way you think." Her mother buried her face in her hands. Her father's jaw clenched. "Is this man on the recording someone from your work?" She hesitated for 1 second too long. That was all it took. Her father exhaled, disappointment etched into every line of his face. "I raised you better than this," he muttered. The room felt smaller, the air thick. She turned to me, tears finally forming. "You humiliated me in front of my family," she said softly. "No," I replied.
You did that when you decided to lie in front of me." Her sister stood, awkward and uncomfortable. She whispered, "Maybe we should give you two some space." But no one moved. Her parents didn't even look at her. They just stared at their daughter, silently grieving the version of her they thought they knew. I took the flash drive from my pocket and set it on the table. "Everything's on here. The timestamps, the files. You can check them yourself. I didn't edit anything." She looked at it like it was a weapon. Maybe it was. "I didn't want this. I wanted honesty. But you chose secrets, and secrets have a way of speaking on their own." Her father finally stood up. "We should go," he said quietly to his wife. "They need to figure this out." As they left, her mother gave me a sad, knowing look, half pity, half approval. When the door closed, the house felt colder. We were alone again. She sank into her chair, head in her hands. "I can't believe you do this."
I walked to the speaker, pressed my palm against it, and whispered, "Stop playback." The blue ring faded to black. "Neither can I said. "But here we are." She looked up, her eyes wet, searching for the man who used to forgive her mistakes. But that man was gone the night I heard her laugh with him. "She never meant to hurt you," she said quietly. "Intent doesn't erase impact. And this was impact." I turned away, heading toward the hallway. My voice stayed calm, almost gentle. "Tomorrow, you can explain everything to your lawyer." She gasped, but I didn't stop. For months, I'd felt powerless, trapped inside my own house, my own life. But as I walked away, I realized something simple. Truth doesn't need to shout to destroy a lie. It just needs to be heard. And tonight, it was heard loud and clear. After her parents left, the house felt too big, too quiet. The air hung heavy, like even the walls were waiting to see what would happen next. She was still sitting at the table, staring at the flash drive as if it were counting down the seconds to her own confession. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just the ticking clock, the smell of burnt candles, and the faint static hum from the speaker that had betrayed her secrets. Finally, she whispered, "Is this what you wanted? To ruin me?" I walked past her, calm, collected, more exhausted than angry. "No, I wanted the truth. The rest you did yourself." She stood, trembling, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake." Mistakes are forgetting anniversaries. This was a pattern. Her face broke. She moved closer, maybe hoping to reach the part of me that still cared. But that part was gone. The moment she brought someone else into our home, into my space, it died. She tried again. "Can't we fix this? Please, we can go to therapy." I interrupted. "Therapy doesn't work on ghosts. You killed us when you lied. Everything after that was just me watching the ashes fall." Her hands shook as she picked up the flash drive. "You could have just confronted me." I met her eyes. "And you would have denied it, gaslighted me, made me doubt myself until I believed I was crazy. No, I needed you to hear it too, to feel what I felt, to know that truth can't be deleted." For a second, her expression softened, not with guilt, but with regret. "You really planned all this," she said quietly. "I didn't plan your betrayal, just my response." She sat back down, defeated, tears slipping down her cheeks. "So what now?" "Now," I said, "we end it properly." I walked to the counter, opened a folder I'd prepared days earlier. Inside were printed documents, proof, Signed peepers and a note with her name on it. I placed them on the table. Everything's ready. You keep the car, I keep the house. It's clean, fair, and legal. You just sign.
She stared at the papers, then at me. You've thought of everything. I had a lot of nights to think, I said quietly. Nights when you thought I was asleep. She looked like she wanted to say something. An apology, maybe. But no words came. Just silence. Thick and final. I turned toward the speaker one last time. Alexa, I said softly, delete all recordings. She blue ring pulsed once, then faded. The house fell still, free of secrets at last. She whispered behind me, You're really walking away, aren't you? I already did. Tonight just made it official. When I left, I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just stepped into the cool night air, breathing like it was the first clean breath I'd taken in months. The neighborhood was quiet, the stars faint. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt clear. The truth had burned everything down, but in the ashes, there was finally peace. Sometimes, revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about taking back the power they stole. And I had done exactly that. It's strange how quiet peace can be. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from silence, but from absence. No lies, no tension, no pretending everything's fine. Just stillness. A month after that night, the house felt different. Lighter. The same walls that once held secrets now echoed with nothing but my own footsteps. I sold most of the furniture, painted the living room, and moved the smart speaker into my office. It still sat there, but I never reconnected it. Some ghosts aren't worth reviving.
People always say revenge doesn't bring closure. Maybe they're right. It didn't make me happy. Not in the way I thought it would, but it gave me something more valuable. Control. For the first time in years, I felt like I owned my life again. I focused on work, started running again, even began journaling. My therapist said what I did was strategic emotional expression. I laughed when she said that. Sounded better than revenge, I guess. One morning, I got an email from her. Short, polite, cold. She'd signed the papers. The subject line simply said, done. No apologies, no explanations, just closure in a single word. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some stories don't need sequels. As weeks turned into months, I realized I didn't think about her much anymore. Sometimes a smell or a song would pull me back, but the ache faded faster each time. Healing isn't dramatic. It's quiet, slow, almost invisible, until one day you realize you don't flinch at memories anymore. I even started recording stories online, real ones, from people like me. Stories about betrayal, redemption, and the fine line between justice and revenge. It turns out telling stories was the best therapy I could have asked for. One night, I sat on the porch, the city quiet around me, and thought about everything that had happened. If I had confronted her without proof, I would have been painted as paranoid. If I had yelled, I would have looked like the villain. But I stayed calm. I let the truth speak for itself. And that's what still amazes me. Truth doesn't need force. It just needs the right moment to be heard. Was it harsh? Maybe. Was it deserved? Absolutely. So, tell me, did I do the right thing? What would you have done in my place? If you enjoyed this story, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss more real-life stories like this one. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction, it's about restoration.